You can all see, right? Okay, so we're gonna start it formally, like good morning and all that. Okay. Good morning. How's it going? Great. So today we're starting with chapter 6, that is the movement of substances in and out of the cells. Okay, and the topic is topic 3, talking about organization and movement of the organisms. So, of the organisms. That is, by the term movement of substances in and out of the cells. What do you expect us to be talking about in this chapter?
Diffusion, osmosis, and active transport.
Diffusion, active transport, and osmosis, right? So we're going to talk about the movement of substances either by osmosis, diffusion, and active transport. Oh, I think I went a slide earlier. Okay, let me just do this. Okay, so like she said, we're going to be talking about either the diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. So firstly, we're going to have to understand what diffusion is. And the definition we got here is, it is a process by which molecules, atoms, and ions spread from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration down the concentration gradient until the molecules, atoms, and ions are evenly distributed. Now, there are mistakes that most of you do when you try to explain this term here, diffusion, which most of you understand. You know what diffusion is, but you don't have the academic understanding of what it is, and that is how you end up losing marks, because most of the time it's out of 3 marks definition. And what you guys define diffusion is, you say, is the movement of things, or is the movement of molecules, and like that you are implying that it's only molecules, but we are talking about molecules, atoms, and ions, that they spread or they move, right, from a region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration. Now, those terms that I'm highlighting, they are very important because those are the marker points. And down the concentration gradient, and that movement will continue. The movement of molecules, atoms, and ions will continue until they are evenly distributed. Some textbooks will say until equilibrium has been met. And the diagram that we have here is basically best illustration of, or best illustrate what diffusion is about, right? So you have molecules, ions, or atoms from one side, and they're highly concentrated there, and they are supposed now to move to a region of low concentration, and over time that will happen, or will continue happening, until equilibrium has been met, or until they are evenly distributed on either side of the membrane. The kind of membrane that we have when it comes to diffusion is a semi-permeable membrane. What does it mean, semi-permeable membrane?
Doesn't allow everything to pass.
Okay, allows certain molecules to move or to pass, certain atoms and molecules to pass, and disregards the others. Are we clear on that one? Is there any question?
No.
No. Okay, then we move on. Energy for diffusion and factors that influence diffusion. Now, when it comes to diffusion, we've learned that it's a passive process. That it does not involve any sort of, it does not require energy and all that. Let's find out. Diffusion is a passive process and does not require energy. However, there is a small amount of kinetic energy involved. Okay? Although it's passive, there is a little bit of kinetic energy that will be needed for it to take place efficiently. Sorry, just take this. So for it to continue taking place efficiently. So factors that influence diffusion, or factors that somehow have influence on how fast diffusion is going to take place, is things like surface area, temperature, concentration, gradient, and diffusion distance. Sorry, it's supposed to be a highlight. So when you're talking about surface area, we're referring to, the area where diffusion is taking place. And we know the larger the area where diffusion is taking place, the faster diffusion will be. Is that making sense? Yes. Can someone give me a practical example of, let's say in real life, with regard to surface area? The larger the area, or the larger the surface area, the faster the diffusion.
So like, say for example, maybe like a spray.
Mm-hmm.
Like you spray in this room, it'll like move fast, so expand fast, like around the areas.
It will spread faster if there is more space for it to do that, isn't it?
Yes.
Comparing to if it was a smaller room and it will not spread as faster because there is no free movement. Okay, and then we have temperature. So the rate at which diffusion is taking place is largely influenced by temperature. The higher the temperature, the faster the diffusion will be. But it's until a certain point, because if the temperature goes above a specific temperature, which we refer to as optimum temperature, what will happen to the enzymes that are responsible for diffusion, for example? It will be denatured, and what do you think will happen to the diffusion process? It will be hampered, right? To stop. And then we have concentration gradient. What about concentration gradient? I know it's there on the board, but what does it mean there? It says the greater the difference in concentration, the quicker the rate of diffusion. Can someone explain that in English or in simple terms? How does the concentration what do you mean by gradient? What do you mean by gradient? Huh? Gradient, what do you mean by gradient? Gradient is differences, right? Yes. Okay, now we're looking at the difference in concentration. Like we've seen in the first slide, or in the first, this is
Sorry for the interruption. All Miss Kamunima's classes, Miss Kamunima is back. All Miss Kamunima's classes, she's back, so please, there's no more invigilation for her. And then Caiaphas Kanji, can you quickly come to the secretary's office? Caiaphas Kanji, can you quickly come to the secretary's office? Thank you.
Okay, so when it comes now to concentration gradient, it's like you've seen in the first slide that I showed, the previous slide. When there is a bigger difference between two areas on either side of the the membrane, diffusion tends to go faster, right? What it means is, if you have, for example, let's say I spray here, right? I spray here. Diffusion will be way faster the moment I spray. That smell will go faster from the moment I sprayed, because it's there on a higher concentration. But with time, it will start to diffuse, but a little bit slower, because the gradient became lesser. The differences have became lesser. And then we have diffusion, or distance of diffusion, or the distance where diffusion is taking place. Of course, the shorter the distance, the greater the rate of diffusion, right? Diffusion will be a little bit faster if the distance in where diffusion is taking place is shorter. Is that making sense? No. Can someone give? Oh no. Okay. A practical example will be a practical example will be, I'm trying to think of something. For example, cold, the temperature, right? I think I gave you this example last year. If you are in a room that is made of glasses, and someone is in a room that is made of 4 walls, who is likely to suffer from cold temperatures from outside environment?
The one from the glasses.
The one in the room made of glasses. Why?
Because it's thin.
Because the glasses are a little bit thinner comparing to the walls. That's why diffusion will be faster. The cold will diffuse in on a faster rate. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. Then we move on to good, I think here. Yeah. Importance of diffusion. Okay. Diffusion helps living organisms to obtain many of their requirements, get rid of many of their waste products, and help them to carry out gases exchange, right? So the main purpose of or the importance of why animals need to, because we're talking about biology, talking about life, right? Why is diffusion important to living organisms? With diffusion, it helps us to get rid of waste products. It helps us to carry out gases exchange, and it also helps us to obtain many of the nutrients that are required for growth to continue taking place. Okay? For example, how do we breathe in oxygen? Through what process? Diffusion. Okay? Diffusion. How do you breathe out, or how do you get rid of, which is a waste product, how do you get rid of carbon dioxide? Diffusion. Okay, and that is now gases exchange that I'm just talking about now. So here is another practical thing about diffusion. You can see there it's written high concentration of carbon dioxide in the leaf cells and the air spaces, and that carbon dioxide, which is highly concentrated in the leaves, in the leaf cells, somehow somehow diffuses into the stomata, into the air spaces, air spaces between the cells, and then diffuses out of the leaf where there is a low concentration. Okay, and then here we have a low concentration of carbon dioxide in the leaf cells and air spaces, and because of that, carbon dioxide moves in to the leaves. Okay, so carbon dioxide will move either way. This happens, we know, or we've learned that plants, they take in carbon dioxide and out oxygen, but that also depends on the time of the day. For example, at night, this happens because of respiration. As the plants are respiring, they're getting rid of carbon dioxide, because as the cells are respiring, they're producing carbon dioxide as a waste product, and they somehow will need to get rid of that carbon dioxide. And the only way they can get rid of the carbon dioxide is by diffusion. And that is the same way they get it in, usually during the day when they have to carry out photosynthesis and all these kind of things. It's very important that you understand this.
So I don't understand this. The one about the plants taking out carbon dioxide, then what do they take in, sir?
Oxygen. That is when the plant cells are respiring, right? When the plant cells are respiring, and be it aerobic or anaerobic respiration, let's say aerobic respiration, they will take in oxygen because for that respiration to take place, and of course the waste product of that respiration will be what? Carbon dioxide. And if carbon dioxide is the waste product, that is why you will have it highly concentrated in the cells of the leaves, and the leaves will need to get rid of that carbon dioxide. That is why it will move from where it's highly concentrated, from the cells within the leaves, to the outside environment. That is during respiration. And then during photosynthesis, this happens. And this is what we have been learning, traditional way of it. This is what we've been learning, that plants take in oxygen and then carbon dioxide out. But they basically do both, but depending on the time of the day and what process is taking place. Is that clear?
Yes.
Good. They do. That is natural. That is when plants I can say they take in oxygen. As a human being, we take in. They take in carbon dioxide. As a human being, you take in oxygen. That is when you're breathing, right? And then they take out oxygen while you take out carbon dioxide. That is, but then when it comes to respiration, be it an animal or a plant, when the cells respire, they produce carbon dioxide as a waste product. And for respiration to take place, there is a need for oxygen, especially when it's aerobic respiration. Is that making sense?
Yes.
And that carbon dioxide that is produced in the cells becomes more than it's required, and plants need to get rid of that as a waste product. That is why I'm saying it depends on what time of the day and what process is taking place. But traditionally, this is what happens during photosynthesis. This is during respiration. Here we have an experiment, basically just to illustrate more on diffusion in water. I think you watched this video last year.
Show us, sir.
No, that's not playing on YouTube. Alright, we are going to investigate how methylene blue there, when dropped in water, when crystals of methylene blue dropped in water, can increase the volume from a region of high concentration, it is the region where it was dropped at, to the rest of the glass tube. This is the region of low concentration. Okay, let's begin. Okay. Alright, we are going to investigate how methylene blue there, when dropped in water, when crystals of methylene blue dropped in water, can move from a region of high concentration, it is the region where it was dropped at, to the rest of the glass tube. That is the region of low concentration. Okay, let's begin. Right there you have it. See that? So you see how methylene blue is moving from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. It would be diffusion as well. Right? You see how these particles. Thank you guys. Where it was dropped, that is the region of high concentration. The rest of the beaker will be a region of low concentration. And diffusion will continue taking place until all the methylene blue are evenly distributed all over the beaker. Equilibrium is a state where you will have equal distribution of these molecules all around this glass tube. Right? So that's it for today's experiment on diffusion. Good. Thank you.
So we are here.